Hey there. So yesterday I released some videos and I was really focusing on this week's aspect, which like the big one that I think is really worth discussing, which is Mercury retrograde in a conjunction with Mars in the sign of Sagittarius. And in the forecast, I was making the connection between how there were three of these conjunctions between Mercury and Mars, and talking very much about how it's like a series. Like the first one was in Scorpio on the 20th of October. The second one was on the 12th of November, or will be on the 12th of November this week in Sagittarius. And the following and final one will be in Capricorn on the 18th of January. And while I was like recording my videos, I was realizing like the penny was dropping about how this was landing in my chart. And so I just wanted to give you an example of how I can see this manifesting in my chart in real time, because it might help you to unpack how it's landing in your chart. And of course, that's what, I love, is to unpack patterns and also help you to unpack your patterns. And so, that's what I'm hoping I'm going to be able to do here. So here's my chart. You'll see I've got Scorpio rising. And so you'll see I've got quite a lot in Sagittarius, like loads in Sagittarius, where this current one is going to land. But anyway, the first conjunction between Mercury and Mars took place just in my first house. And so, this is about bold communication. This is about being really strong in your word and really feeling ready to, I guess, understand yourself. Like the first house is all about your persona, who you are, also a little bit about your body and how you might want to be seen. But Mercury here is you thinking more about yourself and communicating more about yourself and understanding it a little bit more. Now, Scorpio can be a little bit of a reserved and sometimes a bit secretive sign. So you might not be necessarily going out and saying, here I am, and this is what I've just decided about myself. However, you might be having some very powerful internal conversations. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I was starting to listen to a lot of videos that were really getting me thinking. I became, around the time of the 20th, in between working with clients and, whilst I was creating charts to be able to do my recordings and things and doing my sort of back office paperwork, I was listening into ancestry programs. Really listening into things about where people were reunited, with long lost family members and things like that, and DNA connections. Of course, DNA is very much about your personal ID, like it's almost like your mobile phone number, but for your body, so you can dial you up, And so I was listening to a lot of programs about that, but not really thinking anything of it. Anyway, as this current conjunction started to come in, or both Mercury and Mars went into the sign of Sagittarius, it's still in my first house. Both of them are still in my first house, very much about understanding myself and my persona. And Mercury went retrograde yesterday. And it's so funny because in the last few days, I had this growing feeling of wanting to know more about myself, wanting to know, well, where do I come from? What's going on? And we had Halloween and All Saints Day the next day. And around All Saints Day, I'm always wanting to dive into, like share with my children a little bit about, my memories of my grandparents and things like that. And I realized I just didn't really know who I was. And so I sent a message to my dad, and I got loads of WhatsApp messages of photos of my grandparents who had died by the time I was 3, and then my great grandparents, and some birth and death certificates. And it was so funny because I woke up very clearly yesterday, literally just as Mercury went retrograde. And of course, when he goes retrograde, we go into ourselves. And I always think retrogrades link us into the past. It was really encouraging me to go deep. And I didn't realize that I was maybe under the influence of the planets. But the first thing I did before I even started recording yesterday was I reached out to all of my cousins who I have contact details, who I can reach. And I messaged them all and said, hey, have you done any of this research? What do you know? What resources have you got? What can we share? And so I started to piece it together. I started to at least take action about what I'm remembering or what I'm wanting to remember. And of course, Mars is all about taking action. The other significant thing, both of these, they're both in my first house, but one was in the sign of Scorpio, where it's quite internalized. And, right now they're in Sagittarius, and I've got my Sagittarius Sun, my Sagittarius Mercury, my Sagittarius Mars. So both Mars and Mercury are in the signs they're in my birth chart. So the energy of it shifted, for me, taking action and feeling that sense of a quest. Also, not to be, ignored is the fact that it's right on my Neptune and my North Node as well, and they're in a tight conjunction. So that really does talk about ancestry, like what's my line, like where do I come from? Now, I've got some responses back from my cousins, or some of them, from both lines. So it could be quite complicated. And what's really come up is the fact that everyone is got stuff over the next couple of next few weeks, next month, coming up to Christmas and family obligations and things like that. But the thought is there, and we're in light communication with an aim to get things moving in January. And of course, that's when the last one's going to take place. And this time it's going to be in the third house, in the sign of Capricorn. The third house is often about our siblings. It's about the narrative that we grew up with. And so a lot of family stuff can come up with there. I think of this as like the fourth house is your individual family, but the third house is like the family energy that you grew up in and amongst. It's like your community, if such a thing exists. And I know for, my cousins, we're all spread out. We're not really in each other's business. We never really have been. But I love the fact that the next time Mars and Mercury come together, it's going to be in my third house in the sign of Capricorn, where we can look at this, in a practical way, without being too personalized, and we can share evidence, which is a very sort of Capricorn thing. We can create a repository where we can share everything together. And come out with a finished product, where we'll have a video of us all talking and sharing stories. But to me, it felt like a way to virtually connect with my community again. So that's why I wanted to share, just this sense that there are absolutely so many different ways that things can manifest in your chart in real time. And I just can't believe I didn't see it coming. I can see I've got a couple of people watching. It's so nice to do things live. I haven't done anything live for ages, so I'm just going to say hello. I've got Ginger Nettle foraging. What did I miss? Hey. And I've got Claire Mary joining me as well. Hello, my lovely. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining me. So I just thought I would share that and see how that lands. Let me know, like, what is going on with you? How are you decoding this conjunction? Because like right now it's quite reflective. And like I said, the very first one that occurred, I wasn't really aware of a huge shift going on. It was just something I was doing in the background, like watching these videos so that the seeds were being sown. And right now I'm sort of taking action on them. So yeah, I wonder what's going on with you. We've got Cat's Walk joining me as well. Hi, Cat's Walk. Thanks for saying hi. So I'm going to leave that there. Have a great one. Let me know what's going on with you. I just think astrology is so magical. So thanks for joining me today, and catch you another time.